You wake in the middle of the night with the residue of something that felt urgent. Not dramatic, not loud, but precise. As if something had spoken directly to you without using words. For a moment, you are suspended between worlds, carrying an image, a feeling, a tension that feels more real than the room around you. And then, almost immediately, it begins to dissolve. The mind reaches for it and comes back empty-handed. You tell yourself it was only a dream, only the brain sorting through debris. Old memories rearranging themselves while consciousness slept. You turn back toward the daylight world, where plans are made, identities are reinforced. And futures are constructed from logic, effort, and control. But something remains. A quiet unease. A sense that you are moving forward without full visibility. As though you are walking through territory that has already been mapped. And the map was briefly placed in your hands while you slept. And you discarded it because you did not recognize the language it was written in. There is a subtle awareness that something knows where you are headed. Something within you that has already seen the outcome of the path you are on. And you are choosing not to listen because listening would require you to pause, to reconsider. To admit uncertainty where you prefer confidence. Carl Jung understood. Something that most people spend their entire lives resisting. He saw that dreams are not the meaningless noise of a resting brain, not random images produced by fatigue or stress. Dreams are communications. They are messages from a level of the psyche that does not think in straight lines, does not experience time as a sequence of isolated moments, but as a pattern unfolding. Jung observed that dreams often reveal not only the present psychological state of the individual, but the direction in which that state is moving. He called this the prospective function of dreams. This idea unsettles the modern mind because it suggests that the future is not created solely by conscious intention. It suggests that long before consequences arrive in waking life, they are already visible in the unconscious. The dream does not predict the future in a supernatural sense. It does something far more precise and far more disturbing. It integrates every perception you ignored, every emotional reaction you dismissed, every intuition you postponed because it interfered with your plans. It assembles this material into an image that shows you where your current attitude is leading. The tension at the center of this is profound. You live in a world that rewards decisiveness, certainty, forward motion. You are encouraged to present yourself as someone who knows where they are going. Someone who has a plan. Someone who is in control. To admit that you might not fully understand your own direction, that you might be missing information coming from within, feels like weakness. So you privilege the conscious mind. You trust the ego. You trust what can be articulated, justified, defended. And you dismiss what emerges in dreams as irrelevant because acknowledging. It would mean conceding that there is an intelligence within you that operates outside your conscious authority. But the unconscious does not stop communicating simply because you refuse to listen. It intensifies. Dreams become more vivid, more symbolic, sometimes disturbing, sometimes repetitive. They linger in the morning with an emotional charge that logic cannot dissolve. And still, you tell yourself they mean nothing. Because to believe otherwise would mean accepting that your ego is not sovereign. That there is a deeper organizing principle within you. One that may not agree with the direction you are consciously pursuing. When someone suggests that dreams might offer guidance, warnings, or insight into future outcomes, the response is often defensive. People laugh. They dismiss it as superstition or mysticism. They retreat into material explanations because those explanations feel safe. But this reaction is not driven by rationality. It is driven by fear. To take dreams seriously is to confront the possibility that the persona you present to the world is not the full truth of who you are. It means acknowledging that beneath your conscious narrative exists a system that has been quietly tracking your behavior, your contradictions, your unresolved conflicts, and preparing to show you what you are becoming. This knowledge is not comforting. It threatens the illusion of mastery. It suggests that the future you are building may rest on psychological foundations you have never examined, and that those foundations may be unstable. Jung observed that when consciousness becomes too narrow, too rigid, too identified with a single attitude, the unconscious compensates. This compensation is not punishment. It is regulation. The psyche is a self-balancing system. When one side dominates, the other responds to restore equilibrium. The prospective dream is one of the primary mechanisms of this compensation. It does not announce itself politely. It does not ask permission. It shows you an image that carries emotional weight precisely because emotion is what consciousness cannot easily ignore. The dream offers a preview, not of fate, but of probability. It shows the likely outcome if the current psychological pattern continues unchanged. To understand this, Jung's structural model of the psyche is essential. There's the persona, the social mask, the identity shaped by expectations, adaptation, and survival. The persona is functional, but it is never complete. Beneath it lies the shadow, the sum of everything you have rejected or disowned in order to maintain your self-image. The shadow contains flaws, impulses, fears, but also strengths, creativity, and vitality that did not fit the role you learned to play. And beneath both persona and shadow lies the self, not the ego. Not the conscious I. The self is the totality of the psyche, the organizing center that seeks integration rather than comfort. Dreams emerge from this level. They speak in symbols because symbols are the only language capable of holding paradox, contradiction, and complexity at once. This is why dreams resemble myths, fairy tales, and ancient stories. They are not illogical. They are illogical. They operate beyond the binary constraints of conscious thought. When you ignore your dreams, you are not simply forgetting images. You are refusing dialogue with the part of you that knows what you are becoming. You are choosing short-term certainty over long-term coherence. And the psyche will not allow this indefinitely. Either the dreams escalate, becoming more intense, more disruptive, or they withdraw. And when they withdraw, something else happens. Life becomes flatter. Meaning thins. You feel busy but empty. Active but disconnected. This is not freedom. It is psychic anemia. Jung once described a patient who was an experienced mountain climber. The man dreamed that he was ascending higher and higher, exhilarated by the climb, intoxicated by altitude and achievement. When he reached the summit, he did not stop. He stepped forward and fell into empty space. Jung understood immediately. This was not symbolism for its own sake. It was a psychological warning. The man's conscious attitude was one-sided. His ambition had eclipsed his instinct for limitation. The dream was showing him the trajectory of his psyche. If he continued, not metaphorically, but literally, he would likely make a fatal error. This is the perspective function in action. The dream was not destiny. It was a mirror held up to the future that would emerge if the present pattern remained unchanged. Jung urged the man to reflect, to reconsider his relationship to risk and achievement. Whether he listened is unknown, but the principle stands. The dream intervened before reality did. Every day, you absorb far more information than you consciously register. Shifts in tone, micro-expressions, patterns of fatigue, the slow accumulation of resentment. The subtle erosion of meaning. Consciousness filters these out because it is goal-oriented. The unconscious does not. It records everything. And during sleep, when ego control relaxes, this material is synthesized into images that reflect the deeper truth of your situation. Integration, however, is not comfortable. To integrate a dream means to question your self-concept. It means to consider that your confidence may be masking avoidance, that your discipline may be compensating for fear, that your certainty may be protecting you from an inner conflict you do not want to face. This requires psychological courage. Not the courage of force, but the courage of honesty. Discipline enters here in a different form, not as control, but as commitment. Individuation, Jung's term for becoming whole, requires sustained engagement with the unconscious. It requires recording dreams, reflecting on them, resisting premature interpretation. It requires humility. Ego control says, I decide my future. Inner authority says, I listen to the totality of my psyche and allow my decisions to be informed by what I discover. Attempts to dominate or manipulate dreams fail because the unconscious does not respond to force. It responds to respect. When treated as an object to be controlled, it withdraws. When approached with curiosity and patience, it reveals itself. Jung saw this repeatedly. Progress followed humility. Stagnation followed arrogance. Silence becomes a form of strength here. Not repression, but listening. To sit with a dream without demanding immediate meaning is to tolerate ambiguity. This is difficult because the ego craves closure. But meaning often arrives later when life catches up to what the dream already knew. There is also a mirror effect. When you begin engaging your inner world seriously, others feel it. You become less reactive, less compulsive, less driven by projections. This unsettles people who rely on unconscious agreements to stay asleep. You do not need to confront them. Your presence alone reflects what they avoid. Jung's insight is radical because it reframes the future. It is not something created from scratch. It is something emerging from patterns already in motion. Dreams reveal those patterns. They show both the danger and the possibility. They offer you the chance to intervene before the pattern completes itself. Resilience, then, is not toughness. It is contact. Contact with inner resources you did not know you had. Self-mastery is not domination. It is integration. The prospective dream is an invitation into partnership with your own depth. The path Jung outlines is not easy. It demands honesty. It demands humility. But it offers something rare: orientation. A way of walking forward without pretending you already know everything. You wake again in the night. This time, the dream remains. You do not discard it. You write it down. You do not understand it yet, but you acknowledge it. And that acknowledgement is the beginning. Not interpretation, not certainty. Just the willingness to listen, because your psyche has been speaking to you all along and learning its language. It's the most important work you will ever do.